Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking about something that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Hmm.
It's about the recent Lay's recall,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, where those bags of classic chips
Yeah.
might actually have milk in them,
Oh, well,
even though it doesn't say so on the label.
that's a big problem for people with allergies.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
this recall is mostly limited to Oregon and Washington,
Okay.
and for people who bought their chips online.
Makes sense.
But it really raises some big questions about,
Well,
how these labeling errors happen in the first place. I mean, we're
yeah.
not talking about like a small company here.
Right.
Lay's is huge.
Huge company. Yeah.
So how does something like this even happen?
Well, I think the sheer scale of their operation is definitely part of the problem. I
Yeah,
mean, they're churning out millions of bags of chips every single day.
that's true.
And even with the best quality control, things slip through the cracks sometimes. There's human error, there's equipment malfunction.
Okay, so it's like even with the best systems in place,
Yeah.
there's still a chance for mistakes.
Absolutely.
And for someone with a severe milk allergy, that could be really dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. We're not just talking about a little tummy ache here.
Right.
Even a tiny bit of milk can trigger a whole cascade of reactions in the body.
Wow.
You could get hives, difficulty breathing, and in the worst case,
Yeah.
anaphylaxis.
Yeah, I saw that word anaphylaxis in the recall notice.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I didn't really think much of it at the time.
Right.
I just figured it was like a really bad allergic reaction.
It's actually way more serious than that.
Oh, wow.
Anaphylaxis is a life-threatening allergic reaction.
Really?
It can happen within minutes of exposure to an allergen.
Oh, gosh.
Basically, the body's immune system goes haywire,
Huh?
and you get this rapid drop in blood pressure. Your airways start to close up.
Wow.
It can even lead to cardiac arrest.
So it's a full-blown medical emergency.
Oh, absolutely. If someone's eating these chips and they start wheezing, having trouble breathing,
Yeah.
or if their face lips or tongue start swelling up, that's a 911 situation.
Okay, so this is serious stuff. Let's
Mhm.
make sure everyone knows exactly what to look for.
Right.
So we're talking specifically about the 13-ounce bags of Lay's classic potato chips.
That's right, the classic ones.
Okay.
And there are three main things you want to check on the package.
All right.
First, the UPC code. It should be 28400311041.
Got it.
Then there's the guaranteed fresh date, which should be February 11th, 2025.
Okay.
And lastly, the manufacturing codes should start with either 6462307 or 64637.
So I'm guessing those codes help pinpoint exactly which batch of chips was affected.
Exactly. They give Frito-Lay a way to trace those potentially contaminated bags
Right.
back to where they came from.
Makes sense. But it also makes me wonder about all the other bags out there.
Yeah. Like, how can we be sure this labeling issue was only with this one batch?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And it points to a bigger issue with food labeling in general.
Okay.
We're relying on these systems that are prone to errors.
Yeah.
Even with all the fancy track-in and verification systems,
Uh,
human oversight is still crucial,
right.
and equipment can malfunction.
So mistakes can happen.
They can, and they do.
All right, so let's say someone listening has checked their pantry
Yeah.
and they find a bag of Lay's that matches all the recall details.
Oh.
What should
wow.
they do? Just throw it away?
Well, the most important thing is definitely don't eat them.
Right, of course.
But instead of tossing them out, you can actually contact Frito-Lay directly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have a hotline set up specifically for this recall.
Okay,
You can report the affected product and get further instructions.
good to know.
You might even be able to get a refund.
That's great. Do you happen to have that number?
I do. It's 1-800-352-4447. Perfect. We'll make sure to include that in the show notes, too.
Good idea.
So just to reiterate, this recall is only for the 13-ounce bags of Lay's classic potato chips.
That's right. No other flavors or sizes.
So if you've got other Lay's products, you're probably good.
Most likely. But it's always a good idea to double check those labels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if you have allergies.
Or if you're sharing food with someone who does.
That's a good point.
You can never be too careful.
Okay, I think this is a good place to take a little pause.
Yeah, let's catch our breath.
We've covered the immediate steps to take if you've got a potentially recalled bag of chips.
Right.
But when we come back, I want to dive into the bigger picture here.
Sounds good to me.
Like, how can we as consumers push for better safety measures and make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Excellent question. We'll tackle that next.
Okay, so we've talked about what to do if you find a recalled bag of chips.
Right?
But this whole thing has got me thinking, like, is there more we can do as consumers to prevent these kinds of labeling errors from happening in the first place?
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets at this bigger issue of food safety and consumer advocacy.
Okay.
Because while this particular case is about Lay's,
Right.
it really highlights these systemic issues that go way beyond just one brand or even one type of food.
So it's not just about holding one company accountable.
Right.
It's about pushing for wider change.
Exactly. Think about it. Every day there are millions of people with food allergies
Yeah.
who rely on these labels to make sure they're eating safe food.
Right.
They're trusting that the information on those labels is accurate and complete.
They have to.
So when mistakes happen, it erodes that trust, and it puts people's health at risk.
Yeah, like those food labels aren't just pieces of paper.
Yeah,
It's more like a contract between the consumer and the company.
that's a great way to put it.
Right.
Yeah, because that contract implies a responsibility on the company's part.
To like provide accurate information.
Exactly. To be transparent and
Yeah.
to provide information that could actually be life-saving.
Yeah.
And it also implies a right on the consumer's part
Okay.
to demand that level of transparency and accountability.
So where do we even begin with that?
Right.
Like if we want to push for better labeling and stricter safety measures.
Well, one of the most effective things you can do is to directly engage with the companies themselves.
Okay. How do we do that?
You can send them an email, give them a call, reach out on social media, let them know that accurate labeling is important to you
Gotcha.
and that you support measures that enhance food safety, even if it means paying a little bit more.
So basically use our voices and our wallets to make a point.
Exactly. Companies respond to consumer demand.
Right.
If they see that enough people care about this stuff, they're going to start taking action.
Okay. That makes sense. What about going beyond individual companies, though?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to advocate for, like, systemic change,
Absolutely.
like at a government level?
Yep. There are organizations out there that are dedicated to food allergy awareness and advocacy.
Okay.
Groups like Fair Food Allergy Research and Education and the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America.
So we can support them.
Exactly. You can donate to these organizations, volunteer your time.
Mm-hmm.
Even small contributions can make a big difference.
Okay, and what do these organizations actually do?
They lobby for policies that improve labeling standards and protect consumers with allergies.
So they're the ones fighting for stricter regulations.
They are.
That's awesome. But it makes me wonder, like, why isn't there more regulation already? I mean, food allergies are so common.
It's complicated. There are a lot of factors at play.
Yeah.
Part of it has to do with the cost and complexity of implementing and enforcing stricter labeling regulations.
I guess that makes sense from a business perspective.
Right.
But it's still frustrating as a consumer.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And that's why consumer advocacy is so important.
Okay.
By raising awareness, demanding transparency, and supporting these organizations, we can push for a food system that prioritizes safety.
I like it. So besides contacting companies and supporting those organizations, is there anything else we can do on a daily basis?
Yeah. One thing is to really pay attention to those labels.
Like read them carefully.
Every single time. Even if it's a product you buy all the time.
Oh, okay.
Because sometimes manufacturers change their ingredients or their sources.
Oh, right.
So something that was safe yesterday might not be safe today.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I know I'm guilty of just grabbing stuff off the shelf without looking too closely.
And those allergen warnings, the may contain statements.
Yeah, those are tricky.
They're there as a precaution, but for someone with a serious allergy, even a small risk could be too much.
Yeah, that's true. It's like we have to be detectives when we're grocery shopping.
Kinda. We need to be aware, informed, and asking questions.
Right.
And remember, advocating for safer food labeling isn't just about protecting ourselves.
It's about protecting other people, too.
Exactly. Our friends, our family members, even strangers who might be at risk.
You're right. It's about creating a culture of awareness and accountability.
I like that. And it's not all bad news.
Oh, really?
There are some positive trends out there. More and more companies are becoming more proactive.
About labeling.
Yeah, they're going above and beyond the minimum requirements.
That's awesome. So how can we support those companies?
It's simple. Leave positive feedback on their website or social media.
Oh?
Write an email to their customer service department.
Just saying thanks for the clear labeling.
Exactly. It might seem small, but it makes a difference.
So it's about rewarding the good behavior just as much as calling out the bad?
Precisely.
Yeah.
We can use our voices and our choices to push for positive change.
I love that this whole conversation has been really eye-opening.
Great.
It's like we zoomed out from this one Lay's recall.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at the entire food labeling landscape.
And hopefully that broader perspective will inspire listeners to take action.
Right. Not just in their own homes, but in their communities and beyond.
I hope.
Okay. I think this is a good spot to take another breather.
Okay.
When we come back, let's wrap up this deep dive
Sounds good.
with some final thoughts on how this recall can actually be a catalyst for positive change.
I like it.
Okay. So we're back,
Back again.
ready to wrap up our deep dives into this whole Lay's recall situation.
Mm-hmm.
And really the bigger issue of food labeling in general.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. We started with just one bag of chips.
Right.
And now we're talking about these huge systemic issues and consumer advocacy, and
Yeah.
been a lot.
It's amazing how something as simple as a bag of potato chips
Right.
can bring up these complex questions about how our food is produced and labeled and the responsibility we all have to ensure it's safe to eat.
You know, when I first heard about this recall,
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I didn't think it affected me that much.
Mm-hmm.
But after doing this deep dive, I've completely changed my mind.
I think that's pretty common. Yeah, we often don't think about the systems that bring food to our tables.
That's true.
It's not until something like this happens,
Like a recall.
exactly, that we're forced to stop and consider the potential consequences.
Right. And those consequences can be pretty serious.
Especially for people with allergies.
Yeah, this whole thing has made me realize that I actually have more power as a consumer than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I can choose to buy from companies that prioritize transparency.
Absolutely.
And I can speak up when I see something that's not right.
That's the idea. We
Wow.
want to empower people to take action.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's like the one big takeaway you'd like listeners to remember?
I'd say the most important thing is to shift our mindset
Okay.
from being passive consumers to active advocates.
I like that.
We need to be informed, engaged, and holding both companies and policymakers accountable.
To make sure our food is safe.
Exactly.
That brings me back to that question you asked earlier.
Oh, yeah.
How can this Lay's recall actually be a catalyst for positive change?
Good question.
Like in a perfect world, what would that change look like?
Well, imagine a world where food labels aren't just a legal requirement,
Yeah.
but a sign that a company genuinely cares about its customers' well-being.
Right.
A world where transparency is the norm, not the exception,
Right.
and where consumers can trust that the information on those labels is accurate.
That sounds like a pretty great world to live in.
It does, doesn't it?
And it sounds pretty delicious too.
Haha. I'll allow it.
But seriously, is that vision even attainable?
I think so. It might seem idealistic, but it's not impossible.
Okay.
Every time we support a company with transparent labeling practices,
Uh-huh.
every time we contact our elected officials to push for stronger regulations,
Yeah.
we're taking a step closer to that reality.
So it's not just about avoiding a bag of chips that might have milk in it.
Right.
It's about creating a future where
Yeah.
everyone can enjoy food safely.
Exactly. No matter what their dietary needs or allergies might be.
This has been such an insightful conversation.
It has
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there,
Thanks for listening.
thanks for diving deep with us. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic.
Until then, stay curious.
Stay informed and stay safe.